Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar where we will be looking at the concept of day trading, in particular the US session, but we'll also look at the Forex market, and we'll look at some indices, and we'll probably look at some commodities as well. But before we start, as usual, can I draw your attention to the disclaimer that I know you can see on your screen this time because I found it. As you know, trading can be a very risky business. Don't laugh. It can be a very risky business. So please, in all seriousness, please don't ever think of using money that you cannot afford to lose. So I'll say it once, and I will say it again, and I will say it every time we start one of these sessions. It can be very risky. So please don't think of using money that you cannot afford to lose. Okay, very quickly. For those of you who maybe have come along for the first time today, welcome. I hope you'll enjoy what we're going to do in the upcoming webinar. Essentially, what we'll be looking at is obviously looking at charts, and we'll be looking at, as I said, the various markets, focusing primarily on the indices. We'll look at some Forex for a very specific reason, but whatever chart we look at, in whatever time frame, the methodology that we'll be looking that we use to analyze the chart is what we call volume price analysis, and it's something that David and I came across first about 20 odd years ago, and we have developed it since then. There is a book that covers the methodology in detail at Amazon. I know a lot of people who come along to the webinar have actually bought the books. Some have bought the our specialist software, and some of you I know are on our Forex program. But that's where all the concepts are laid out in detail in the book, which is a complete guide to Forex price analysis. Now, the book is also accompanied now with a companion, if you like, of worked examples, because it was a question I was always being asked by traders and investors, saying, well, you know, the book is great, and you know, you cover all the concepts and you know what you mean by VPA, but what about examples? And so there is a companion book where it has over 200 examples, primarily, again, this one from stocks, indices, and some commodities. There is a version specifically for the Forex market, and this box set is the Kindle one, and the two come together. So that's the methodology that we are going to be looking at today. The reason we use this methodology because it combines price action that we see on the chart and volume. And by volume, in the way we look at volume, we look at the volume which we call activity, which is the volume bars that you see at the bottom of your chart. But we also look at what we call volume at different price levels and very much over time, which is our volume a volume point of control indicator that we've developed. We can see here, this is this histogram that you will see on our charts, but we'll explain in detail how we interpret this volume together with the price action, because when we do our analysis, obviously we want to know what's going on now. We will also look at what has been happening, not just in the time frame that we're looking to take a trade on, but in higher time frames. And I particularly want to cover looking at the daily time frame, because there's been a very interesting candle volume combination on the NQ. Did a blog post about it on my site, and it kind of foreshadowed some days. It foreshadowed the price action a few days later. And that can often happen with VPA, because one of the things with VPA is you will see a signal on a chart, and a lot of people sort of say, well, I saw the signal and nothing happened. You've got to be a little bit patient, and sometimes, you know, the signal, depending on the time frame, and if it's a slower time frame, may take a little time to develop. So there was a really nice example of that on the daily chart of the NQ. We'll talk about why, you know, there was perhaps this lag, and you know, the possible consequences of that lag. If you've been coming along regularly, will know last time, and also in the Forex sessions that we do, we've been talking about reversals and why reversals happen because of sentiment, news, fundamentals, geopolitical events. And they are obviously reflected on the chart. With volume price analysis, what we do, we look at candles, we look at candle patterns, we look at support and resistance, and we see whether those reversals are genuine or not by looking at, as I said, this relationship between the price action, the candle pattern, and the volume. And I've got a couple of examples to show you as well. In fact, I'll just highlight it now very quickly. I've been looking at the Aussie yen. And there's been a really nice example here. This is a perfect example of what I was saying before. You see this hammer candle that came here. There's the Aussie yen has been falling. As the indices have fallen, so the Aussie yen has fallen, because the Aussie yen is a currency pair which is a proxy for risk. So and what that means is if the market is risk on or risk off, that the Aussie yen it correlates quite strongly. So as the indices have been going higher, the Aussie yen has been going higher. We've had a bit of a swoon this afternoon in the indices, and as a result, the Aussie yen has also fallen as well. Then at this fall, then we have this hammer candle come in, and you think, if you are a price action trader, purely as a price action trader, a lot of them would say, they call that a pin bar. Now, there's obviously been a reversal of sorts. Obviously, the price has fallen in selling, and then it has risen higher because there has been some buying come in. The question is there enough buying to actually reverse this fall that we've seen here? Now, the volume underneath it is not fantastic, because if you want a really good deep hammer candle with a ton of volume underneath it, you practically get a V-shaped reversal, and we've seen this on some of the indices. So this is what I mean about one signal. You see that and you say, great, it is going to reverse. It looks as though it wants to reverse. We can see here what's happened. It's actually gone into a consolidation. Volume has actually fallen. Could be the time of the trading day, and also it's hit this resistance here. So there are other factors involved. You can't just go off one individual signal. It's a good signal in as much that if you were short this and you see this come in, you could possibly use it as an exit, because you think, do you know what, that move has now come to an end. It may reverse, it may continue lower. The way you play it is depending on your position size, on how many positions you have on. You could take some of them off and perhaps wait, or you take them all off and you say, let me see what happens in the next phase of the price action. So that's what we're going to look at in terms of reversals, trying to find some of those candles, putting them together with the other principles of VPA, which is support and resistance. We're going to look at the daily chart, particularly the one with the NQ, because the analysis is up on my site, and if you haven't had a chance to look at it, it's just a great example of buying coming in slightly earlier, and then the index moving higher. We're also going to look at related markets, in particular the FX market, because it can often lead, in as much that you will see a move, certainly in the yen pairs. And I've got my MT5 platform up where this actually happened this afternoon, but it also happened last week, because I said, I just commented to David, I said, look, he said, the indices are going down, everything is swooning. And I said, actually, do you know what? The yen pairs are going up. And that's an anomaly, if you like, because if the indices are going lower, you actually want the yen pairs to go lower as well. And I said, well, and lo and behold, not long after, the indices also reverse. So if you trade Forex, keep an eye on what's happening in the indices. If you don't trade Forex and you're looking at the indices or you're stock trading on a daily basis, it's always worth keeping an eye on what is happening in the FX market. Right, I was going to pass over to David, and then we'll look in more detail at some of the charts. If you have any questions, just pop them into the chat box. Happy to answer them either on air, or one of us will type an answer for you.